When I was in design school, I thought the things holding me back were pretty obvious. I thought I needed to learn more software, I thought I needed a better portfolio, and I thought I needed more connections. And while all of those things were important, none of them ended up shaping me the most. Looking back, there are 3 things that I wish that someone would have taught me or told me earlier when I was learning design and learning to make meaningful work. Not software, not a portfolio, and not networking. These 3 things. All right, my first point. Good work takes longer than you expect. One of the biggest misconceptions I had as a young designer was that good work happened quickly. I thought that experienced designers could sit down, come up with an idea, and execute it flawlessly right on the spot. But as I had to work at disassembling that line of thought, what I've learned is that creativity is never a straight line, and good work takes time. Not because you're slow, not because you're doing something wrong, but because creativity is a process. The hard part is that this lesson doesn't really ever go away fully. I still fall into this trap from time to time. I'll start a project convinced that I have it figured out in an afternoon. And then I find myself days later thinking, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm still exploring ideas, I'm still refining systems, and really just trying things that didn't work in the first place. But the biggest difference is that I don't see it as a failure now. I just see it as part of the process. Creativity is not a vending machine where you put in your money, you push the buttons, and immediately get out a great idea. It's more like a journey where clarity slowly reveals itself. And honestly, some of my favorite work has come with that process of trying things, failing, trying them again with a new mindset sometimes, and you never know what's going to come out through it. And the second thing I wish I understood earlier is connected directly to the first. Because if creativity takes time, then consistency becomes incredibly, incredibly important. All right, so point 2. Consistency always beats intensity. Now, this isn't the most exciting lesson, but it's the most important. When I first started out, I couldn't get a single job. I couldn't get a design job. I couldn't get anything, and it was incredibly frustrating. So I began freelancing, and eventually I landed one consistent client. The work wasn't glamorous. Most of it was pretty ordinary. But the client ended up teaching me something that completely changed how I approached my creativity and my process. So what I did was I developed a simple system. At the beginning of the day, I would knock out all of the client's work first. Then what I would do is I would just allow myself the opportunity to work on something that I genuinely wanted to make for myself. But what happened is the personal work ended up becoming fuel for the consistency to show up every single day. And really what this was is that it gave me something to look forward to. That feeling of anticipation. It's incredible what anticipation actually does for creativity. And honestly, one of the reasons that this consistent showing up for the client was so helpful is that as I worked more and more on my own work, I became more excited about it and I wanted to get to it sooner. So it actually forced the envelope of becoming more efficient in my software, more efficient in my thought process, and really it forced clarity in ways in which that I would kind of piddle around, if you will, with ideas prior. So showing up every day in that consistency actually helped end up building muscle I didn't even realize I was building. So I stopped waiting for inspiration, I stopped waiting for motivation, and I stopped waiting for the perfect idea. At that time, I was just making things. And for someone who can get so stuck in wanting the best thing and the best results every single time, one, you can't do that. But when you do things so exuberantly and so excitedly, it's a game changer. And over time, this lesson has kind of proved to be a cheat code. Not every project was amazing. Not every project was something I was looking forward to. And really, looking back at that, I learned so much more just in showing up and providing consistency to myself than I ever did in just having bursts of motivation. And that brings me to my third point, that I think most of you will probably be interested in, especially if you sometimes feel like an imposter, if you sometimes feel like maybe your ideas aren't quite measuring up. But this season of consistency ended up teaching me so much about this third lesson. This one probably carried me through the most discouraging season of my creative life. Number 3, your taste develops before your skill does. Now, this is something that I wish someone would have taught me in design school. I knew that I liked good design. I knew what good design was, and I knew the brands and the visuals and the creative work that I wanted to do. I knew where I wanted to go. That was never a missing piece of the puzzle for me. But the problem was that nothing I made looked like what inspired me. Everything felt flat. Everything felt unfinished. And really, everything that I made ended up looking like a poor imitation of what inspired me in the first place. And for the longest time, I actually just thought, maybe I'm not cut out to be a designer. Maybe I'm not talented enough. Maybe I don't know how to put the right kind of hard work in. But I eventually learned something that created an incredible amount of freedom in my work. My taste was actually just ahead of my skill. Though I couldn't create it, I could recognize quality work. And this is actually what made that gap feel so painful. I knew where I wanted to be. I just didn't know how to get there yet. But once I understood that, comparison started changing. So instead of it becoming evidence that I wasn't good enough, it actually became evidence that I knew what excellence looked like. And over the last 10 years, that gap has slowly began to close. Not through a breakthrough moment, just through years of making things consistently. Trying, failing, learning, repeating. The gap isn't completely gone, and I actually don't know if it'll fully ever disappear. But that's part of what keeps creativity so interesting. So if I could hop in a time machine and I could sit down with the younger version of myself, it's these 3 things. Good work takes longer than you expect. Consistency beats intensity. And your taste will always develop before your skill does. None of these things have necessarily made creativity easier, but they made it easier to keep going. Because when you can shift your perspective, it changes the game that you're playing. And honestly, that's probably what matters most. And the people that you look up to, the designers that you want to be most like, they didn't arrive because they were instantly great. They stayed in the process long enough to become great. And maybe that's exactly what you need to do too. That's what I need to do. Peace.